accountability framework. I think the last time, if I'm right, that we were in this building was probably for the PCB in April 2003. And I remember a discussion there where the PCB talked about the need for a results-based management of the UBW and a mechanism that the PCB could actually monitor and hold to account UNAIDS and the implementation of the UBW and the decision points. And I say this in the context of the PCB as a governing body of UNAIDS and the need to ensure that implementation of its decisions. And so I turn back to, in the context of universal access, at the PCB in June 2007, not too long ago, the PCB reviewed the evidence around the national target setting process for universal access. And in that, it showed that in many countries that the targets did not actually reflect the epidemics. Particularly, we were seeing missing targets for the most relevant, most vulnerable, and most marginalized communities in specific countries. And in many, they were far from universal access in its true meaning. So again, at that meeting, the decision from the PCB was to request, and in fact, decision 11.6. I've been to the school of Dr. Suet from Thailand in terms of referencing. So in that, the decision, UNAIDS Secretariat was requested by the PCB to provide clearer direction and support to national processes and to validate the universal access, ambitious and comprehensive targets. So that was a request for UNAIDS Secretariat to go and do that. And other decision points, both 11.5 and 11.1, the PCB requested the Secretariat to monitor progress on universal access and even to report back in the PCB in 2008. And this did not happen. So turning to you, Michel, really we appreciate your statements of and a call for renewed leadership from UNAIDS around the universal access process. But we really need to see UNAIDS be more actively engaged in supporting genuine target setting and genuine ambition around universal access at the country level. And you talked about, for example, in your presentation, only a third of countries will have met universal access targets by 2010. And this is deeply concerning, not only because of that, just when we hear that, but especially so when it is based often on many targets that don't even reflect the epidemics. So we're really calling on you as a leader of UNAIDS to ensure this time round, now you are in this leadership role, that the reviews of national targets are actually meaningful, and that UNAIDS actually does this work it has been requested to previously in the PCB. The fact that we have not achieved universal access by 2010, which was our target, and are far from it in many areas, should really be of greater concern and discussion by this PCB. And we have heard a number of member states and the NGO delegations talk to this. But now really is the time for UNAIDS to show that real leadership for universal access. But to be more specific is really asking for UNAIDS to really transparently and with greater clarity publicize the detailed analysis of the country targets and progress on it. And again, more specifically and lastly, to ensure that a proper process for the revision of the targets that reflect the epidemics at the country level and not just reviewing previous targets that actually don't reflect epidemics. Thank you.